Hello, everyone. Erica here again. Thank you all for staying tuned with us and joining our second presentation of the online college block party, a web series that celebrates first-gen college and underrepresented students on their journey to and through college. I hope you all enjoyed our previous presentation with Rice University. Just in case you're joining us now and missed the previous presentation, that's okay. We will be sending the recording to watch the replay. Before we do get started, here are some quick housekeeping rules. One, use the chat feature to the right to interact with others that are here. Feel free to introduce yourself and let us know where you're from. If you have a question, feel free to use the Ask a Question tool below. Note that there are no right or wrong questions, but try to avoid any questions that are about your GPA, your test scores, or your admissions chances. It's hard for colleges to provide, the best answer for you without seeing your full application. So try to ask questions that can benefit everyone here. And if you're curious about chances or learning more about the colleges that are presenting today, feel free to visit capx.com/greenlight-student and explore our 3,000 college profiles and learn more from our CapEx insights. And if you are joining us live today, be sure to join the conversation on Twitter at #CollegeBlockParty. All right, so we still have a lot in store for you all with Bowdoin coming up. Now, and following Bowdoin, we will have College Greenlight. So who is ready to gain some insights on how to navigate this college searching process during these COVID times? I know I am. We are definitely thrilled to invite Senior Assistant Dean of Admissions, Jamil Moore, and current Bowdoin student, Leanna Harrington. Jamil and Leanna, welcome to the College Block Party stage.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you for having us. Again, my name is Jamil Moore, a Senior Assistant Dean of Admission at Bowdoin College, and I am so lucky tonight to be joined by my dear friend and partner in crime, Leanna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leanna. I'm a current Bowdoin senior, she or hers pronouns. I'm coming from the Cape in Massachusetts. Are we doing more introductions, things that we're doing, or do we want to?
Yeah, if you want to keep going, just so they know who you are, that'd be great.
Yeah, happy to. So on campus, I study English with a minor in urban studies. I work with admissions as a tour guide and now as a senior interviewer. I TA for the psych department, and I work with the meditation club on campus.
Great. And so for everyone, the basis of this presentation is to help alleviate some of the anxiety, stress, and maybe even some frustration that is tied to your college admission process and search during the pandemic. I can assure you, as someone who has been working with students, reviewing applications, and talking about college admissions for my entire professional career, no one expected this, and no one was prepared for this, but we're all taking these new circumstances in stride. I'm trying to embrace the silver lining with this new environment that we find ourselves in. So I'm excited to be talking to all of you about how to maximize your college research with this new landscape. I will tell you that over my entire career in higher education, I've observed and experienced a lot of schools up to this point have been reluctant to change. A lot of what schools have been offering, how they encourage you to apply, how they interact and engage with students has been really similar for a long time. So embrace the new and the exciting, as this pandemic has forced every school to pivot, become more creative, and to truly meet students where they're at to ensure that you all get the information, the perspective, and the connection that you need to make the best fit college decision for yourselves. And so as we work through these slides and the presentation, the underlying theme to this whole thing is that this is the same information that you would have been researching had you gone through this process even 2 years ago, but with a whole new look now. So my hope is that you find some ways that this process can work to your benefit and find ways of making the most out of the circumstances. So during this evening's presentation, my plan is to break it down into 3 sections: how you may be able to approach researching and connecting with colleges and universities in different ways, what is effective, and what are areas where students can improve in the environment, and how to keep track of all the information. Ultimately, we're going to look at how access, technology, and organization can help you navigate the research and application process. So first and foremost, access. Although I would like to think that college admission representatives Although I would like to think that college admission representatives have always been highly accessible The world is working in a whole new way, and I stand corrected now. We are truly more accessible than ever. With that being the case, it would be savvy of all of you to take full advantage of this opportunity. College websites are usually helpful, but when you're trying to determine a feel for a school, the community and the enthusiasm behind an institution, there are two primary groups of people who will help you be able to provide that perspective: admission reps and current students. And so between Leanna and I hope that we are able to do that for you. And so let's jump right into it. So first and foremost, in terms of access, I think virtual information sessions can be a great opportunity and a great introduction to how you can learn more about schools. These are typically general, broad brushstroke presentations that will give you a good general feel how the school views academics, student engagement, student activities, clubs, organizations, athletics, but also how they view admissions at the respective schools, and often will leave room for questions. Some virtual information sessions will include a current student who, alongside the college rep, will be able to provide specific examples of how they, being at the school, how they play out through their personal experiences, which I think is a really important insight for you all to develop. This is typically a great starting point to get some general information, possibly a question or two answered, but also to hear what other questions are being asked, and hopefully get a sense of direction on what you can do next to learn as to kind of what to do with the rest of the process. So some kind of pro tips, if you will, some do's is I definitely recommend to bring questions. Questions around applications, admission process, financial aid, campus student life. So things along the lines of, does the school work along the lines of early decision or regular decision? And what does that mean, or what does that look like? Are there different application deadlines? In terms of financial aid, you might want to know about work study. How does that work? How does that get determined? How does that factor into what it costs to attend said institution? And from a campus student life standpoint, you might be wondering about studying abroad, or you might be curious about what clubs and organizations are available, or what kind of support is available to students. And the primary don't with virtual information sessions is to not ask a question that is so easily found on a website. Nothing drives me more crazy than having a student take the time to ask a question and they're like, so do you have soccer? And it's like, well, yes, we do have soccer. Similarly, how good is your psychology program? And it's like, what school is not going to tell you that they've got a good program? So think a little bit deeper, get below the surface, and ask a more open-ended question that can sponsor a conversation, if you will. That's a big recommendation as you're kind of feeling your way and developing your comfort level and asking questions in that virtual information session. There also is the opportunity to take a virtual tour. These will certainly vary from school to school, but as I said before, with so many colleges being forced to restrict guests on campus, touring in person is not as likely. And with that said, we in the admission world know that the campus tour is typically one of the biggest deciding factors for a high school student to decide on whether they want to attend, if this is a right fit for them. So it was imperative for institutions like Bowdoin to find a new and creative way to try and portray that tour experience virtually. So this may include a virtual map around a campus with a little assistant or a little robot that pops up with a voiceover to explain what you're looking at. But it may also include more of a slideshow presentation or a video component where you have a current student alongside to be able to navigate you and tour you, much like you would be on campus, to give you that kind of perspective and experience. And typically those opportunities are followed with a question and answers session. Oh, sorry, if I'm moving too quickly, I will try and slow it down a little bit. And then there is also live chat. And live chat can be a really easy way for students to just ask a really common, quick question. For Bowdoin as an example, we just have it right off of our institutional webpage. So you're right on the bowdoin.edu webpage, you're clicking over to admissions, and on that page, you will find just a little chat feature. And so if you have a question around application deadlines or something that is just quick that you just want to be able to chat and exchange with, that's an easy way to get your question answered without committing to maybe an hour-long information session. And so that's a way of, again, taking advantage of the virtual space. You may also find that in addition to staff members staffing the live chat, you may also have the opportunity to access a current student. Bowdoin, for example, is putting students on the live chat feature so that students might want to ask, kind of what the day in the life might feel like and what are the things that you go through as a typical student at that institution. So it's a great way to get that perspective that even me as an admission rep may not be able to give you, but a current student can certainly be able to give you what a day in the life might feel like for them. This is a big one. And so interviewing is a huge component in terms of what is now being able to be done in the virtual world. Typically, a lot of institutions may only do their interviewing on campus. But now that we have this accessibility through Zoom and Google Meeting and all these different platforms, we can really meet students where they are at. And so if you're coming from around the world, across the country, you have an opportunity to interview, which I think is so important. Things to kind of consider and to keep in mind is that interviewing is not always a requirement, but something that is viewed as an opportunity for you to share more about who you are, what you do inside and outside the classroom, and just simply to provide the college rep an ability to get to know you better. I like to think of interviews as far more of a conversation. I hate the term interview. Interviewing sounds formal and stuffy, and you have to come on and impress me, and that is not the case. I'm not going to sit there and ask a student, well, how would you describe yourself as a part of a car? And you're like, what? No, what I really want to know is kind of what are you interested in? How are you building your college list? How has your high school experience gone? How are you spending your time? Who are you kind to? This is a great opportunity to expand upon your extracurricular list. If there are things that don't fit quite into the tight format of a common application, for example, this is an opportunity to share more of those things that you're doing. I know for some students, being able to join the band and play 3 sports and, tutor somebody else may not be possible because you have to run home to take care of your little brother or little sister, or maybe you have a part-time job because you're contributing to the rent at home. It's so important for you to be able to tell us that. We want to know how you're spending your time. So it doesn't have to be the crazy popular highlighted things that you see in the media. Not every student can play the oboe and be the captain of the football team and take a mission trip to South Africa. And so those sound great, but we also want to know those real things that you're doing that you may not have access to. And so it's really important to take that time and tell that story. Sometimes there are holes in your transcript. If you've had a little bit of an up and down high school experience, this is a great opportunity to provide some context as to the things that might have been going on with you during that time in high school. Maybe you were sick, you had a loss in the family, you got a concussion playing a sport. There could be a number of different reasons why you got that B or that C in a class. And so being able to sit down with an admission rep or even a current student and have that conversation to explain a little bit more about what might be going on there, that context can be really important. And as you see here in the slide, the community ad is another thing that we're thinking about. We're really conscious of who are we bringing to our community. And so being aware of who you are as an individual beyond your grades, beyond your test scores becomes really important. And so I really want people to think about the opportunity to interview. Again, typically not required at most institutions, but something that I think can really help you in the application process. Now, Miss Leanna, would you want to kind of jump in here? And I think you've got a little perspective as to what interviewing might have looked like or not looked like as you went through the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something Jamil and I have talked about now that I work as an interviewer in admissions, but I actually, when I was going through the college application process, didn't interview anywhere. I didn't realize that it was important. And as a first gen navigating the college experience application process for the first time, I didn't really know where to look for that information as to what I needed to be focusing on, what not to. But now as I've started sitting in on interviews and conducting them myself, I feel like I really appreciate the holistic take that people working in admissions are using to evaluate candidates. And I think just appreciating how when we're interviewing, we're looking at when people are lighting up the most because they're talking about something they're passionate or excited about. And I would say there isn't really any perfect blend of characteristics in a candidate. It's more what makes them special and unique, and acknowledging that there's going to be many different types of folks that are fitting into making a campus community work. And just seeing how those things can come through in an interview has been really interesting from the other side.
Yeah, thank you, Leanna.
Mm-hmm.
And so in addition to these other virtual offerings, you also have, did I skip something? Yeah. I want to go back. And so this idea of office hours. And so reps, this is a new thing now that we are providing ourselves in, say, like Zoom meetings or Google Hangouts. This is an initiative that I'm even trying to take on with my territories. It's just to make myself more accessible to you as students. And so this is different from an interview. This is just a admission rep sitting in a meeting space virtually and enabling you as students to just come and visit this office. And so come in, pop your head in. It's certainly less formal, can be a little bit more time efficient because you can just pop in, ask your question and go. You can hang out for a little bit, hear what other questions are being asked from other students, bring a group of friends with you if you're all interested in the same school, have your parents join. I know parents like to have their questions answered. But I feel like this is a very underrated resource and an opportunity because how else with someone maybe from across the country where if I'm not traveling to California or getting down to Philadelphia or getting to Chicago, wherever a student may be, to be able to make myself available online to just pop in and have a conversation and just get a couple quick questions answered, I think is a really helpful tool and something that I can see us using well beyond the pandemic. And that our world is changing and there's going to be a new normal, and creating virtual office hours is going to be one of those things that I anticipate will be around for a while. Another new opportunity to access admission representatives in this virtual world is through group travel. And so very much like our event that we're having tonight and tomorrow, this is an opportunity to interact with a number of different schools in an effective and efficient way. Perspective is everything. I say that in a lot of different ways. And different reps may speak on different offerings in different ways. So hearing how a representative from a big public university versus a small liberal arts school may be something that is important for you to hear and see differently. Schools may have different approaches to admission process, financial aid, student activities. And so getting a sense of how schools do these things differently is important. And then we'll get to talking about organization, how you organize all of that at the end. But these are ways that schools can highlight the differences of their respective institutions, but giving you opportunity to access them all in the same place. So this is a little bit of a pivot. So this category is a little bit self-explanatory, but I felt it was important to highlight mostly because there's so many ways through technology that you may have questions or feel unsure of what the best ways of kind of conducting your research may look like, but also some of the best practices with more information coming through the technological channels versus experiencing some of the college admission process in person. So first and foremost, our good friend and constant distractor, social media. There is a new landscape for college and universities to meet students where they're at. This is an opportunity for you to just see a little bit more of the organic experience that's happening on a college campus. Certainly schools are taking advantage of being able to post videos and pictures so that you can feel that energy and enthusiasm that you would normally feel if you were visiting in person. A new pivot, and now that we're trusting our students a little bit more, is an opportunity to hear from current students with takeovers. Something that Bowdoin did last spring was every week or so, we had our open house interns jumping on our Instagram live channel and just making themselves accessible to students to ask questions, get some insight and some perspective. But ultimately, social media just provides an outlet for campus activities, engagement, faculty, student accomplishments. And so make sure you check out not just the main pages of each institution, but do a little bit of digging. You may find that there are different academic majors or programs, certain clubs or organizations, athletic teams that you can get a better sense of, if this is something that I can see myself doing, are these people I see myself interacting with? And so that's something that I think can be really helpful in the technology space. Another popular and well-known entity, but certainly something that I think is underutilized, is email. Due to the restricted budgets that a number of schools are facing with the pandemic, schools are trying to save money, the long and short of it. And so by mailing less postcards and invitations and material in the mail, like they normally would be doing, which they are now sending electronically, which is also better for the environment, so we'll take that. But so it's important to think about how you can best utilize your email. And so the one big step I would say is save admission rep or college emails to your contact list. This will help prevent important updates and information from being rerouted to your spam folder. And this will especially be important once you apply, and updates and status checks of your application, even your admission decision may come via email. And so you don't want to miss those things. So it's important to keep that organized. Open your emails. Oh my gosh, I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to open your emails. For one, schools can see if you are opening your emails or not. And so if you are interested in a school, it's something that we certainly are able to see in a lot of ways. So this can be a subtle hint to schools as to whether you are truly interested in the school or not. And we will go over kind of how to manage this better in the organization section, but please open your emails. And then also just email is a great way of accessing admission reps. It's a simple and easy way to introduce yourself, an opportunity and platform to ask a question without putting yourself on video, and also a way to seek more information. If you're looking to connect with a current student that may be studying what you are interested in studying, if there's a faculty member that is leading a research project or is teaching a course that you are really interested in and you want to be able to get some insight on that, or if there are clubs and organizations that you need more information about, shooting an email over to an admission rep is a great way of getting that information that you need. Managing technology is a little bit of a different step. And so when you're facing technical difficulties, just know that we are all doing the things remotely, electronically and virtually. And at this level, and it's all for the first time. We're all going through it. We're all at home, which means we all have family, parents, siblings, maybe even grandparents or extended family. Some of us have roommates and neighbors, pets, people mowing the lawn, construction, trash pickup. Oh my gosh, all of it. So we're all working with these obstacles and distractions. And so there is a level of understanding that things are going to happen. And so easing the anxiety a little bit so that you know that if your little brother is screaming in the other room, that the admission rep is not going to hold that against you. But it is important to be prepared. And so plan ahead and try to eliminate the possible distractions or to get out in front of any technology issues. Things such as practicing your Zoom call with your friends or family. Something that me and my friends still do to this day is every couple of weeks, we'll just jump on Zoom and be able to hang out and socialize. But at the same time, it's an easy way to practice kind of how Zoom works and locating what the different functions are. So that's something that is important for you to think about as you're navigating the virtual space. Locate good spots in your home with the strongest internet connection, maybe a quiet room, the best lighting. One of the things I have to emphasize is clean your bedrooms. Oh my goodness. When you don't have the luxury of a virtual background, we can see into your rooms. So please be mindful of what is being captured by your camera. That includes your attire. It includes the posters on your wall. Again, the cleanliness of your room. But certainly we are understanding to that, sibling that may run by the camera, but I think it's do everything that is within your control. A question that I have gotten in the past is, what if I don't have steady access to internet? And this is a very real dynamic that colleges and universities really need to think about more and are continually trying to find solutions to. As the pandemic took hold, of course, everything in every business and consumer sector moved online, which quickly overlooked any and all of the people who may not have the strongest connection or limited access to the internet. And so this goes just not for the internet, but maybe having limited access to a computer or a phone. And so ways to combat this, if you have access to a phone, is the good old-fashioned phone call conversation. To be honest and upfront, if you have limited access to internet or technology, explain that to your admission rep, and they will find the best way of getting the information to you. If that means mailing, we will mail things to you, but we need to be able to know that so that we know that we can help. But it's also really important to think about being resourceful. Hopefully, maybe some businesses are starting to open up to be able to sit outside of a coffee shop and utilize their free Wi-Fi. If you have access to a library or anywhere with a public Wi-Fi, I think is important to think about. If you're trying to send an email or get something submitted, those are ways to kind of get around the limited access to internet. But most important, the biggest takeaway with all of this is communicate that obstacle so that we know and can help you through that process. And so don't let technology be a barrier. Communicate that to us so that we can help you. In our third section here, we're going to talk about organization and what I believe will make the greatest difference in your approach, feeling, and enthusiasm towards this process is staying organized. It is the number one thing I emphasize to students, that if you can keep things organized, not only will it help keep your parents at bay, but it will make you feel you have a much stronger grasp on the process. You will feel more confident in what you know, what you want, and what you still need to figure out as you build up your list and narrow down your options. So first and foremost, this should be an easy one. Note-taking, pretty straightforward, but horribly underutilized. So many of what schools have to offer and the way that they talk about it and their deadlines all sound so familiar, I understand, but they all have these key differences, especially the due date component. So taking accurate notes is the first step to quality organization. Try to have notes all in the same place so it'll be easy to compare and contrast. I like the old-fashioned notebook or a binder. But then also if you're sitting on a laptop and doing a lot of research online, an Excel spreadsheet can be really helpful too. Another big tip in terms of organization is writing down your questions. There's nothing more frustrating after having a great conversation of an interview. Maybe you're feeling good and excited. You run to tell your parents or your guardian all about it, and they ask you, did you ask about this? And you're like, oh my God, like, how did I forget? And it is certainly okay to always circle back with the rep, but it is really nice to have everything neatly tied up at the end of a conversation. You may have different types of questions for different schools, or depending on who you are, or depending on who you're speaking with. If it's a current student, your questions may vary than if you're meeting with, like, say, myself, an admission rep. And so being prepared and having those questions written down can be really helpful. So that way you're not forgetting. A pro tip for you is pay close attention to other students or parents and the questions that they ask, especially if you or your family are going through this admission process for the very first time. It can be intimidating, and it can be, and very well can feel overwhelming when you know that there are so many questions, but you don't know where to begin. In information sessions, virtual tours, there will be students and families who will be doing this for the second, third, or even fourth time. So they know what to ask, and it's always good. It's always a good way to get a better feel for what is important to you and your family on what to find out to determine the best fit for you. So pay attention to those questions and write those down so that you can stay organized, but also to get the information that you need. Another organization tip that I'll share with you is unsubscribing from emails. We were just talking about how important it is to open your email and how schools are utilizing email, but at the same time, technology can open the floodgates on information. And as you continue through the process, it will be natural that you are no longer as interested in a school. And that is okay. I cannot emphasize that enough. It is okay. You will not be hurting anyone's feelings, or at least not for very long. And this is your process. So only spend time on the schools and offerings that matter to you most. So unsubscribe from emails that you are not excited about. So to better manage your inflow of email and information, feel free to unsubscribe from places you've moved on from. Just be mindful that you don't do that for a school that you like, because they may remove you from an email list if they see that you've unsubscribed. And so that's something important to think about. And I wanted to share with you all, I'm a huge fan of the spreadsheet. This is something that my mom made me do when I was going through the process. I was a first generation student as well, but thankfully for my mom, she must have gotten some good advice from somebody, but this was what she made me do. So I gave you a little bit of a mock spreadsheet here. J. Moore University, Harrington College, but I also included Bowdoin on there. And these are just some examples here that you could use as a way of organizing your information. And so it's always important to include the application deadlines, because that is definitely something that will change and vary from school to school. Not every school is going to have early decision. So some may not. And so being aware of that. A supplement essay is typically an optional essay that's not required, but not all schools use these. And so again, indicating if you're going to need to write that additional essay is something you're going to want to keep in mind. Cost is certainly something that is important. And in cost, there's ways that you can break that down, but be mindful that there's tuition, there's room and board, the cost of a meal plan, cost of books. There may be additional expenses like flights or transportation that you need to account for. And so build that all into your cost category. But again, I think cost is a really popular and a good idea to include in a spreadsheet. Certainly location, just to remind yourself of where all these schools are, but also maybe a tab or a section about whether it's in an urban, suburban, or rural state, just to, again, keep everything organized and to make sure you know where you remember where said school is, especially when you're not able to visit. Size can be really popular, and size can mean everything from total population, like we have in this example, but also average class size, the student-to-teacher ratio. So the number of students per teacher on campus can be mindful to give you a sense of if it's a small, intimate classroom environment or if it's more of a big lecture-style experience that you're looking for. But size is something that's really important to be categorizing. And then other can be just all the things that are really important to you. So clubs and organizations that you're looking for, certain opportunities or highlights, maybe it's an internship program, a robust study abroad offering. If you're looking for an institution with strong academic support and tutoring and a writing center, those may be the things that you want in place. And so again, that other category can be very flexible, but I think this is a really helpful exercise, a really helpful way of keeping things organized, and something that if you're doing it on, say, Google Docs or Google Sheets, you and your family can be sharing that information. And so if mom is, pulling it up on her phone when she's talking to a friend about a college, she can do that. And so that's something to keep in mind. And I'm going to kick it back to Leanna here. So I think she can weigh in on maybe how she might have organized or did not organize when she was going through the process.
Yeah, so I did not organize, long story short. When I was looking over all the schools that I ended up applying to, I knew that I wanted a small school. I wanted to stay in New England. And I had researched Bowdoin to a certain extent, but honestly, the plan for me and my parents was to just pick the school that was going to give us the best financial aid package. And thankfully that turned out to be Bowdoin. It's been a great fit. And some of the things, I feel like I've really lucked out in my time here with the study abroad opportunities, academic, financial, first-gen support, funded internship grants. But those are things that I found out about once I got here. And I think it may have made my decision easier if I had known that those are things that I could have been looking forward to ahead of time. But again, very grateful that I have access to them now. But that's my little, so organize is the moral of that anecdote.
And that is the basis of the core components of how to kind of maximize your research in this virtual environment. But Leanna and I also want to take some time to also talk a little bit about Bowdoin. And so now we're going to highlight our respective institution. Bowdoin College is a small liberal arts school located in Brunswick, Maine. We have roughly 1,800 undergraduate students that come from 49 different states, 44 countries, with about roughly 50% of our students are receiving financial aid. We offer 40 different majors and minors, with about 25% of our students pursuing a double major. So there are definitely ways of incorporating multiple areas of study. We have a strong emphasis on collaborative learning, close, tight-knit connections between faculty and students, and our entire campus buys into the value system of the common good, which is kind of looking beyond ourselves as a way of utilizing our resources and our time and our energy to support the people and efforts around us. To just kind of highlight kind of the application process at Bowdoin. In terms of applications, we accept the Common App, the Coalition app, and the QuestBridge app. Some key deadlines to keep in mind: early decision 1, November 15th, early decision 2, January 1st, regular decision, January 1st. And early decision, regular decision are important to differentiate. They are intended to meet you where you are at as students. The way I describe early decision is that you need to be all in on that school. You need to know it cold because it is a contractual obligation to attend that institution if you sign an ED agreement. And so if you are admitted, you have to attend. And that sometimes can include the financial aid package that is coming with it. And so it's really important to be mindful of what that financial aid and what that cost of attendance will be going to that institution before you're applying early decision. One of my colleagues, the way that she jokes about it is you need to be mentally prepared as if you're going to get a polar bear tattoo. Polar bears are the mascot of Bowdoin. And not to get a tattoo, wait till you're admitted, but that's like the level of severity that you want to be at before you're applying ED. And if that's happening, if you're realizing that a school is that your number one school, you're ready to about to get the tattoo prior to November 15th, then early decision becomes a really great space for you to apply in. But if that realization that that Bowdoin's the number one school and this is where you want to be is not happening until December 1st, well, then early decision 2 becomes a great space for you because the deadline's on January 1st. And if you're going through your college admission process and you don't have a far and away clear-cut number one school, you might be concerned about what financial aid packages will look like across different institutions, then regular decision may be a more appropriate space for you because it gives you the luxury of being able to pick and choose. Again, if you're admitted under an early decision designation, you have to attend said institution. I thought it was also important to highlight that we do offer an application fee waiver to all first-generation students and any student that's applying to Bowdoin that's applying for financial aid. And so while I'm on the point of financial aid, there are 3 things that make Bowdoin really unique in terms of their financial aid awards. We are need blind. What need blind means is that we do not know your family's financial situation or context or background prior to offering you admission. So when we are reading your application, we have no idea how much money you or your family is making. The second thing is that we meet 100% of need. If it costs $75,000 to go to Bowdoin, your family can maybe only afford $5,000. That gap of $70,000 we cover. And the third thing, and this is the big differentiator, there are no institutional loans. And so there are only 18 or 19 schools in the country that do all 3 of these things. And that third one is a big one. So if we're covering that $70,000 gap, by no institutional loans, what that means is you're not paying back any of that money. That is free grant money to enable you to attend Bowdoin. And so if we think that you're admissible, we want you to be here. We are going to do everything in our power to remove that financial burden so that you are able to attend. Now, I want to be clear. If your family has to accommodate or account for that $5,000, it may make financial sense to take out a loan to cover that $5,000, but that's not a loan coming from the college. That's still a loan that you pay back to a bank, but it's not coming from the college. So there's no institutional loans, no college loans coming from Bowdoin when we meet 100% of your need. How to access Bowdoin in the virtual environment. And so we just went through all these different opportunities and ways to connect with colleges, and Bowdoin is doing all of them. We are hosting virtual information sessions 3 times a week. And then maybe once or twice a month, our student aid office is also doing information sessions. So it's a really important resource for you to be able to learn more about the financial aid process, how to apply, what are the things that we're looking for. At Bowdoin, we do need the FAFSA and the CSS profile. So to learn more about that, that's a great session to attend. We talked about virtual interviewing, the virtual tour, something that is new. Virtual programming, so things like this and the group travel, the office hours that I mentioned, and of course, live chat, social media, and the good old classic email and phone call. And so there's always ways to access us, and that's really important to us. And then I wanted to highlight, kind of lastly, are some Bowdoin resources. And so certainly the Center for Multicultural Life, I think, is a really important offering, which the emphasis on the Multicultural Center is bringing together people with varying experiences, perspectives, and backgrounds to learn and grow while developing a more cohesive community. The intention of the Center for Multicultural Life is to create a home away from home for students whose backgrounds are typically underrepresented at Bowdoin. Maybe they're low-income students, first-generation students, and students of racial and ethnic minorities are typically the ones that will find themselves within the Multicultural Center. And Leanna here is someone that has certainly benefited from that resource, and so I wanted her to take some time to speak upon that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like the majority of my experience with the Multicultural Center has been through their first generation programming and support. So 2 big things my first year fall every fall semester they do a first gen and student of color retreat to a campground, maybe 40 minutes from campus, just to take the weekend to allow students to make connections, explore the outdoors, just bond over shared experiences. And I went my first year and it was an incredible experience. So that was one. And then the second was just they do weekly dinners for first generation college students and also faculty at the college. So I kind of a funny full circle story. My sophomore year, I met one of my professors, Belinda Kwong, at a first gen dinner, and now this year she is my research advisor for a senior honors project that I'll be completing in May. So just making those connections early on, and I think what has been really, really special about participating in some of that programming is just that especially at kind of smaller liberal arts institutions, especially in whiter, more rural towns, it's really important to have visibility for professors of color and for professors that are also first generation college students, and to be able to identify with your faculty members in that way is something that I've really appreciated during my time here.
Thank you. And then I also wanted to quickly highlight Bowdoin's Advising in Support of Excellence program, which we call BASE. And really, this is just the program is designed to enhance academic experience of students and support academic excellence through a more structured and kind of cohesive academic advising, with a strong emphasis on goal setting and self-reflection. And we also just in the last 2 years implemented a student mentor component to this as well. So it's just an added layer of support and just a connection with peer dynamic that was new to the BASE program. And the last thing that I want to highlight, and this is a really exciting piece to the Bowdoin experience, is our Thrive program. Thrive is a college-wide initiative designed to foster achievement and belonging and membership. And all of you have been connecting with Netflix. I have a feeling been crushing all the series and movies. And Reed Hastings, who is the CEO of Netflix, is a Bowdoin alum from the class of 1983. And he's the one that funded this entire program. And so it's really incredible. And a component of the Thrive program is this Jeffra Canada Scholars. And the way that this is broken down is that there is a summer institute, which runs from mid-July to late August. And it's just an opportunity for students to come in early to learn more about Bowdoin through the fun things of scavenger hunts and local outings. You'll be going to trips to Portland, which is the biggest city in Maine, and other New England cities, but also is an introduction to college-level academic work. You're attending classes on a range of different subjects to, again, build up your skill set so that when you hit the ground running at the beginning of the semester, you're not overwhelmed or caught off guard by the rigor that is certainly a component to the Bowdoin experience. And the big piece of this is also the financial benefits. And so I'm going to kind of list these off for you. So as a Jeffrey Canada Scholar, you will have transportation to campus to attend the Summer Institute. Room and board for the duration of the Summer Institute will be covered. You will get a laptop computer that will include the software needed for the Summer Institute. For students who have a summer income expectation, which is a part of your financial aid package, there's a $2,300 grant that is applied to offset any of the loss that's required for that summer work contribution. You get an $800 fund for personal expenses not covered by financial aid. So this could just be things on like gas money or going to the movies or a restaurant. You have the support of a family member to visit on arrival day. So we're paying for that transportation cost for that family member. You have a reduction by half of your expected on-campus work study earning for your first year. And then last but not least, and this is a big one, as a Jeffrey Canada Scholar, you also qualify for the Jeffrey Canada Scholarship, which is a $3,300 scholarship to be utilized as an upper class student. So this is in support of a non-credit enrichment opportunity, maybe research and independent study, a career-related internship, travel expenses, or some sort of service learning or community engagement, which is a really dynamic opportunity. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted that for you as something that I think it really trademarked to Bowdoin, but also a way that we're providing access for different types of students. And so that was a lot. And so I hope that that was not too much of an overwhelming component of and a lot of information. So I'm going to stop my share screen here. And now, we can take some questions. And so feel free to lay them on us. I know that I saw one in the chat a little bit earlier that said, can you have more than one interview? And at Bowdoin, the answer is no. And so you can only interview once. We do pay attention to that, and then we have you all into our system. But by sitting down with, say, either myself or Leanna, we would be taking notes in that conversation and uploading those to your application so that we have it documented and we have all those things that you shared with us at the ready when we're reviewing your application. Let's see, I see some other questions in here.
I did notice the most upvoted one is can interviews help or hurt your chance to be admitted in a college?
And that's a great question. And I think, and I can only speak to Bowdoin. I think what is important and a question that I would recommend that you ask when you're asking about interviewing to different schools is if it's an evaluative interview or informative. And knowing that evaluative obviously means that they're evaluating you as they're asking you questions and learning more about you, versus the informative being just more of a conversation just to enable you to ask questions. And I would say that by the time the interview comes into play, it's not going to make or break in most cases. I would say that in most cases, it's going to help you as just an added context of this is what the student is going to bring to the campus and to the community. And so in most cases, it's something that's going to help because it's highlighting more of who you are and what you're doing. I would say in most cases, students, even if you are a little bit more of a shy person, again, it gives us an opportunity to help learn more about you. And so I would encourage students to pursue an interview. And even if you are not a strong communicator, if it's something that makes you nervous, then there are those other ways of getting the information that you need. And so kind of put yourself in the best places for success. But I think in most cases, the interviews will help.
Can I ask you the next one? I feel like this is also a admissions question.
Go for it.
How do you find a part on the application?
How do you kind of like highlight yourself? And so at Bowdoin, I mean, we talk about this a lot. This is the equation, how we evaluate an application at Bowdoin. It's two pieces, really complicated: grades and heart. And I'm not even lying. There's a poster in our office that says this. Grades and heart are what we're really looking at. And so certainly Bowdoin is challenging, it's rigorous, it's a high achieving academic environment. And so we need to see that you can keep up and handle the work. So we are going to pay attention to your transcript and see how you performed in your classes. By looking at your transcript, we want to see that you're pursuing rigor of what's available to you. Now, every high school is different. And so not every school is going to offer you 35 AP courses or X number of IB offerings. So we are just looking at what is relative to your high school. So what we want to see is that you're challenging yourself, and certainly hoping that you're doing well. There's nothing that is more frustrating than seeing a student take 12 AP classes, but they're getting C's in all of them because they're in over their head. Like, don't take APs just to impress me on your transcript. Take them because they're an important, appropriate challenge for you. And the second piece of this is the heart part. And this is a way that you can really stand out, is by taking the time and being mindful of what are you putting down in that extracurricular component of, say, the Common App. So I want to know how you're spending your time. Who are you kind to? And I kind of spoke to this earlier with the power of interviewing, but being able to capture those things is really important because we get a character component from you. We get a sense of responsibility. We get a sense of kind of where your engagement is and what you might bring to the table in terms of community add to us. And so really taking the time, because I can't tell you how many students forget to include some of these things on their applications or to share them with us in an interview. And I'm talking about some of the most basic things. I've met with a student that talked about how he lives in a very remote rural area and he has to go get water for his grandmother. Now, that doesn't sound very cool or compelling, but that's a strong sense of responsibility. And that's something that he has to account for in his day every day. And it's just super nice of him. And so I think it's important to share those small things, that how you're contributing to your family, how you're contributing to the community around you. Those are the things that are really important to us in addition to your grades, and a great way of being able to make your application stand out.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that. I got a question the other day in an interview of what an average student at Bowdoin does, or what our general interesting to be. And I think one of the things that I appreciate the most about the student body is that we have a really wide range of interests. There is no like perfect candidate with the perfect combination of interests. I think a great example, one of my roommates, his name is Will. He performs in the jazz ensemble and chamber choir, but then also is a leader of the Bowdoin Organic Garden and studies classics. Like there's no perfect storm of characteristics that will make you stand out. It's really what speaks to you and what you're passionate about, and then hopefully that will show through. Cool. Let me look through. Joel, do you see any? I don't know how much time we have left for any questions that you want to address before we.
That one's not for us.
Hi, team.
Oh, is that it? Are we good?
Oh,
I saw there was one more here that was asking, does Bowdoin want SAT or ACT scores right now? And this is a great thing to bring up because Bowdoin actually was the first school in the whole country to be test optional. So way before the pandemic, 50 years ago, Bowdoin chose to go test optional. So we do not require SAT or ACT scores for applications for admission. We will use them if you send them, but if they're not a good reflection of your academic ability, you do not have to submit them. And so this year, I know every school is going test optional. And so rest assured for you, anyone that's applying to Bowdoin, know that our entire office is trained to be holistic in our review of applications. That's all we know is to look at everything else beyond test scores. And so if they're not strong, do not feel like you need to submit them regardless of what you're interested in studying. Excuse me, that's really important to know. So as of right now, we are test optional, and I hope that answers that question. So here's a good other one. Would you recommend waiting until your senior year to schedule an interview? And at Bowdoin, again, I can only speak for my institution. We only interview seniors, and so up until your senior year, you could take advantage of all the other offerings of touring and info sessions, live chat, but we hold the interviewers for high school seniors only.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for your thoughtfulness in the presentation and your answering of questions. We all hope that you all got some valuable insights from our team here at Bowdoin. So before we wrap things up, could you all provide us with some parting words of wisdom for our students?
Leanna, you want to go first?
Sure, happy to. I would say, and this is something that I've even been thinking about more recently as I've started working admissions as an interviewer and seeing the kind of behind the scenes process. But when I first got into Bowdoin, even when I was hired by admissions as a tour guide my first year, I was worried that I'd been chosen or that I'd been hired because I was identified as a low-income first-gen student of color, and that checked a lot of diversity boxes that maybe schools and institutions are trying to emphasize on campus. And I think now just seeing again, that holistic process and looking at what a student's going to be able to contribute to the campus community. Those are insecurities that will probably follow me for a long time after Bowdoin, but at the same time, by no means should that make you doubt your, I guess, just awesomeness as a person, as a candidate, as a potential member of a new campus community over the next 4 years.
Love that. And I think if there was anything that I wanted to say is really just, I mean, I would certainly echo everything that Leanna just shared, in that I'm first generation student of color, low income. And so having experienced those same doubts and certainly have struggled with that in my professional life as well. But in addition to that, and more on the admissions side of things, I would just say that this is why I do these things. I want to make myself accessible to students. College changed my life. It probably saved my life in a lot of ways. And so it's really passionate work for me to work with students and help them find their desired levels of success. And so if I can help in any way, answering questions, giving you a better sense of if Bowdoin is the right fit for you, I think that there's a right fit institution for any student. And so you just have to take the time to do the research. But part of that research is asking the questions, and know that people like me, the reason why we do what we do is to help you. And so seek us out. You are not bothering us by shooting us an email or giving us a call. That's literally our jobs. They call us admission counselors in a lot of ways for a reason. We're here to help. And so I just want to share that with everyone, that I want to make myself accessible. I want to be a resource. And I know that I'm not the only one in this industry that's hoping to do that. And so take advantage of those people that are going to go to bat for you, but certainly going to be there to support you with your questions and your research.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you all so much for your time. Audience, let's give them a round of applause. And thank you all so much. But before we move on to our next presentation, Bowdoin did include a post survey at the bottom titled Complete Survey. So please take the 2 minutes to tell them what you thought, what you loved. And once it's completed, don't go anywhere. In the next 5 minutes, College Greenlight, our fearless moderator and bringing us together, Brittany Cleveland, will talk to you all about what we have to offer when you're applying for your scholarships, you're doing your college search. So stay tuned. We're ready to continue to keep this party going. Thank you all so much.
Good luck with the rest of your search.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you.